What place is overrated to visit? Hollywood Walk of Fame. Haven't seen a dirtier road. That wing mural in Nashville. There is literally a line that takes an hour to go take a picture with a pair of wings on a wall. Plymouth Rock. It's just a rock. It's not even a big rock, or a weird-looking rock, it's just a grayish lump the size of a beanbag chair with 1620 carved on it. I didn't pay anything to look at it and it still was a ripoff. There's a nice pizza place nearby though. Hollywood. I feel so bad for tourists in LA that waste their vacation time in that dirty hellhole. Kind of specific, but I visited the gold and silver pawn shop from the show, Pawn Stars, when I was in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago. Holy garbage, that place is tiny. Mad props to the production crew that films inside there, because I always imagined it was big and open. It's basically a single aisle from the door to the back of the store with a little side area where the registers and offices are. I went out of my way to see it, expecting to spend at least an hour looking around. After being inside for 5 minutes I saw pretty much everything and left quite disappointed. Can't wait until BuzzFeed gets a hold of this thread. Whatever expectation you have of Roswell, New Mexico, it's worse. Plymouth Rock, the only boat small enough to have landed on it would be for ants. Deleted. Toyosu Fish Market. The one that replaced Tsukiji as the fish auction central of Tokyo in 2018. You get to watch the auction process, but only if you go early in the morning. And even then, only through small glass windows 2 stories above the auction block. If there are more than a couple dozen other visitors, you will not be able to see anything. As for a Toyosu dining experience, you're better off eating sashimi and sushi literally anywhere else in Tokyo or in Japan. They mark up the prices at Toyosu more than 300% and claim that these are the original sashimi houses that have been serving fresh fish for generations. Yet the quality is no different than any other restaurant. And the wait times are more than an hour, as each shop only has room to seat about 10 to 15 patrons per shop at a time. Getting to Toyosu also cuts your day in half, as the metro route requires you to go several stops out of the normal junior line for Tokyo, and you will need to walk 5 to 10 minutes at each stop as part of transit. Once at the Toyosu buildings, you will spend even more time walking from the station to the restaurants and auction areas. It is not a convenient place to visit and not very special. I would cross it off any travel itinerary. Edit. As an added note, some have asked if Tsukiji is still in operation. It is. Anyone who has traveled to the old fish market can still have the same experience, as many of the vendors, shops and restaurants surrounding the old fish auction are still in business, minus the fish auction of course. The New York Stock Exchange, you can't actually go in and see the trading floor. So now I know everywhere I want to visit is overrated. Oslofjorden. Please go anywhere else in Norway when you visit. Times Square on New Year's. If you know, you know. The Little Mermaid statue in Copenhagen. It's just so meh. And too far away from the city center, especially if it's freezing outside like the time I visited it. Just get a souvenir or a postcard or something. Copenhagen itself is beautiful though, very highly recommended. Japan has such a romanticized view of France that they actually have a term, Paris syndrome, for the sudden shock suffered by Japanese tourists when they see that France isn't how they imagined. Four Corners. It's hours away from anything notable and there isn't really anything to do there except a picture and buy Native American crafts. Boardwalk in Monopoly. The original Starbucks store in Seattle. It's a recreation and the actual location is a few doors down. The design and decor doesn't really stand out. They serve Starbucks coffee there. Large queue to get in and standing room only. Take selfies in front, order, buy some souvenirs and GTFO. The store interior is just a queuing place. At least it's in a decent tourist area and it's low effort though. Also, please don't put your bags down by the light fixture in front of the store, my dog manages to pee there sometimes. Edit. Grammar. Someone will think everywhere is overrated. If you check the travel sub and say you're going to a European capital city, it's overrated and you need to go to the countryside. If you're going to the countryside and skipping the capital city, you're missing out because it's a gem. Go where you want. Read up on it so you have reasonable expectations of what you will see though. If you're in Dublin, stay away from the Temple Bar area, it's ridiculously overpriced and is not at all what a real Irish bar is like at all. If you're ever in Berlin, do all the touristy stuff in one day. Go to the Reichstag and walk to the Brandenburger Tor, visit the Holocaust Memorial, then walk to the Alexanderplatz. There's not that much to see, but that city has so much more cool places to visit or to hang out. Especially if you're looking to meet people or not pay much for little value. Lake Laogai, yeah, it's a honor to get invited by the Earth King, but, in my opinion, it was 4 stars not 5, the food was overcooked and bland and the pillow was stone hard and they had nothing softer. Like if invited I'd go again, I just won't go out of my way to get invited again. Hollywood. The most disappointing garbage and piss-covered place on Earth. If it's a super popular spot on Instagram, it's probably overrated. UAE, it's the most culturally deficient place you will ever see in your life. Bondi Beach in Sydney. Overcrowded, everything there is way overpriced. Dubai and Abu Dhabi. No salary could make me move there. Pisa. Besides the small square with the tower where everyone is taking the same garbage tea joke pic. And guys trying to sell you toys. The rest of the town is pretty garbage. You're in Tuscany, go to any small town and you'll enjoy it far more. Dubai. Mall of America. It just a mall with a lot of stuff in it. My opinion would have probably be different if I didn't live in Minnesota. The Mona Lisa in Louvre in Paris. It's just a small painting hanging quite far away in a really crowded room full of tourists. Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful, iconic painting, but it's not worth visiting the Louvre only for the Mona Lisa. The majority of the other artworks in that museum are more impressive than the Mona Lisa. Definitely Majorca. I'm German enough, I don't want to hear 90% German on holiday in Spain as well. The quieter, less central parts of Majorca are gorgeous, especially for snorkeling and diving, but the Playa de Palma, or at least that part, is horrendously German lol. Tourists that visit popular places and are disappointed when other tourists also want to visit popular places. I live in Vancouver, Canada, and there is a place called Capilano Suspension Bridge. It sounds good but is overpriced and loaded with people. Edit, I'm trying to say that the place is great but not when there is so many people. A good alternative that PPL agree with is Lynn Canyon, which has less people and is free. The Corn Palace in South Dakota, every single billboard for miles kept advertising it and it was so built up that eventually I had to make a detour on my road trip to visit it. How could I skip over a giant castle made of corn? No. It is a cheesy, tiny museum that is not made of corn at all. Bali. It was beautiful 10 years ago but now it's been ruined by influencers. Area 51. Times Square for sure. Although it's cool to see all the lights, it's honestly just glorified ads everywhere you look. There's nothing really special about Times Square, lots of people, chain restaurants, subpar quality food, lots of homeless people on the streets, and random people trying to sell you stuff as you walk by. The US side of the Niagara Falls are pretty underwhelming. It's like a little sideshow next to the gigantic horseshoe-shaped falls that are the Canada side. South Beach, Miami. Overpriced bars and clubs. If you're a dude and you don't have a fine group of women with you, be ready to drop serious cash for a night out if you're there. There are better beaches up and down the coast that won't force you into the terrible traffic and parking SB has. Really only worth it when you had to pay respects to D-Wade the God. After reading most of the comments I came to the conclusion that people ruin those places, not places themselves. Everywhere. Myrtle Beach SC. Just a giant tourist trap and full of boring county fair type stuff. The Sears Tower, or as it's officially known, the Willis Tower. I live in Chicago and I refuse to take people there. If you want to have a nice view of the city, it's way better to go to the signature room at the top of Hancock Building. The view is just as great if you can enjoy a drink while you're at it. Mount Rushmore. Its face is on a rock basically and smaller than you think. Blackpool used to be a nice place but not anymore. Anyone said Niagara Falls yet? Hear me out on this one. The falls themselves are beautiful, and I guess if you're really into the history of a waterfall and its surroundings you can spend half a day there. But once you've seen it, you've got nothing. The Canadian side is a discount Vegas, which Vegas in itself has been listed like 18 times in this thread. The S side is slummy but Buffalo. Make Niagara a pit stop, not the destination. Batu Caves in Kuala Lumpur. Saw Asia is full of karst caves. Many are bigger and aren't full of tourists. But macaques are also everywhere. Brussels. If you're in Belgium, visit Ghent and Bruges.